I'm Bradford with Management Scott of Personal Finance. In this video, we're going to be covering IRS Form 1040 Schedule 1, Part 1. I'm going to be walking you through line by line in this section to help you understand exactly what information goes in what line. So that way you know if you have income that actually needs to be reported on this schedule or not. So let's jump into that form and get started. So here we have Form 1040 Schedule 1. First part, you're just going to copy over whatever your name is, your legal name that's on your 1040, and that's going to go in the top box as well as your social security number. And then we have line 1. It's going to be taxable refunds, credits, or offsets of state and local taxes. Basically, if in the year that you paid the tax, you either didn't itemize the deductions or you elected to deduct state and local general sales tax instead of state and local income taxes, this income is non-taxable. But if you did the opposite, this information will have to go here in line 1, and that's going to be coming from Form 1099-G. Next up on line 2, this is going to be alimony received. Now, a big caveat here is that if the settlement for whatever this alimony is, if it occurred prior to 31 December 2018, that is taxable income. Now, if the settlement occurred after that, so 2019 up to present day, that is not taxable income. And then additional thing, if you are filing that this is a part of your income, you do have to provide your social security number to whoever is paying you that income, so that way they can have the proper tax documentation. Going on, line 3, this is business income or loss. This is going to be coming from a Schedule C. So if you are a sole proprietor, that is where this information is going to be going after you fill that Schedule C, which is going to have all the information about your actual operating expenses and profits. So basically, this is anything that's going to go in here. Please do note that if you are doing something in the gig economy, you are driving for Uber, you're delivering with DoorDash, you're doing something else, you're making things like Etsy and selling them, that information is taxable and it does need to go here. For other gains or losses, that's going to be Form 4797. That's basically used for assets sold or exchanged for trade or use in a business. Now, usually that is going to be going on a much higher level, and if you are dealing with those sorts of assets and things that are being traded or exchanged, I would highly recommend going to a CPA to be able to make sure all that stuff is documented accurately. 5, this is going to be rental income, as well as royalties from partnerships, S-corps, trusts, etc. And that's going to be coming from Schedule E. So basically, it's any sort of supplemental income. It's primarily going to be coming from rental properties that you are running as a business, but it could also come from the other types that are listed, but the exact number is going to be coming from filling out Schedule E, which is not going to be covered in this video. Next up is 6. Do you run a farm? If you do, that's going to be coming in with Schedule F for farm income. Now, next up is going to be unemployment compensation. You should be getting some sort of documentation with a 1099-G. That's going to be coming from either the local government or the state government that is going to be indicating how much money you actually received in unemployment compensation. Now, starting in 8, there's a whole lot of subcategories in 8, but we're going to be starting out with A. So this is going to be a net operating loss that was basically carried forward from previous years. Now, if you're just working a W-2 job, I wouldn't worry about it, but if you are operating some sort of business, that could be particularly useful in this case. 8B, gambling. Basically, any wins that you're getting from a casino, from a lottery ticket, things like that, that's going to be going in 8B. Cancellation of debts. If you had debt that was outstanding that was canceled, the IRS does view that as a form of income, so it's going to have to go here. How are you going to know how much money was actually canceled? That was going to be coming from a 1099-C, which should be issued to you by whichever company or individual canceled your debts. That form is required to be provided if it is on a debt that is greater than $600. 8D. Basically, this is income that was earned overseas. It can be deducted from your total income that is paid to the IRS if you lived in that foreign country for 330 plus days over the previous calendar year. Now, those do not have to be consecutive days, but you do have to have actually lived in that other country for greater than 330 days. 8E, this is going to be coming from either an Archer Medical Savings Account, MSA, or a long-term care LTC insurance contract. 8F, this is going to be coming from health savings accounts or HSAs. 8G, this is only going to be applicable if you live in Alaska because Alaska pays out money to the people that actually live there. 8H, this is going to be income that's provided while serving on jury duty. So if you are doing your civic duty there, you're going to be getting some sort of income while you're not able to work at your regular job. So that is information that's going to go right there. 8I, basically this is any sort of prizes or awards that you get, with the exception of Olympic-related medals or prizes. So with the U.S. Olympic Committee, if you were involved in regular Olympics or the Special Olympics, that information is going to be covered in a later part of line 8. So then 8J. So this is going to be any hobbies which you made money from, but the intent of the hobby was not to operate as a business. Let's say you make some sort of knickknacks on the side. You really like making the knickknacks, but then you also sell those knickknacks to be able to kind of like support your hobby. That would be going in here. Now, if you have any questions as to whether or not you have something that is actually a hobby or if it is actually a business in the eyes of the IRS, go over to the IRS website, www.irs.gov, and they have a couple different points of criteria that you can look at to help you, as well as the IRS themselves, determine whether or not something is actually considered to be a hobby or a business. Now, next up is going to be 8K. Basically, if you're trading stock options, that information is going to go here, whether it is a profit or a loss. Now, please, if you're doing that, it is highly risky, high risk, high reward. Please know what you're doing. Going over to the next section, this is going to be I. Now, this is going to be for a little bit more complicated. It's basically if you're renting property and it is viewed as an investment and not a business. What's the difference here? A business is something that you are actively working towards. You're doing it day in, day out. Let's say you are managing a property and you are you're doing the repairs and things like that. You are actively involved. You are spending your time on that particular rental property. Then it could be viewed as a business. And then you're going to have other ways of being able to offset and deduct expenses from your taxes. On the other hand, an investment, you're not going to be able to take those different deductions and have them as tax deductible expenses. But the positive of it being an investment is that you don't have to pay the additional taxes that you would have to if it is operating as a business. So this one, it is being viewed as an investment and not as a business, and that is where this income would go. 8M. Basically, this is going to be reporting the amount on your 1099 miscellaneous line 3. So let's say you went to the Olympics. You got a gold medal. Congratulations, that gold medal, it is worth something, and the IRS wants to know how much it is worth. But I guess a good part here is that if you make less than $1 million or $500,000, if you're filing separately, then that's not going to be tax deductible. But it just kind of weird to me that if you are some like very high profile athlete, you probably got some sponsorships. Ideally, you're making more than this amount, then the government is going to give you a medal and then tax you for it. That doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm not the one that writes the rules. So if you go and win something with the Olympics or get paid by the U.S. Olympic Committee, that's going to go here in line 8M. 8N, this is going to come from Form 5471, and this is going to be for U.S. shareholders of foreign corporations. I didn't do the work to be able to dive into this because it seemed pretty complex. So if this does in fact apply to you, please go to a CPA. Same kind of thing with 8O, except for this one, it's going to be coming from Form 8992. Again, if this does apply to you, please see a CPA to be able to figure out how to actually document it correctly. And then line 8P, it's going to be coming from Form 461, line 16. So the numbers that you kind of want to pay attention to here are going to be $289,000 or $578,000 for joint returns. Basically, what is this? The definition of an excess business loss adjustment is going to be the amount by which the total deductions, computed without regard to any deduction allowed under Section 172 or 199A from your trades or businesses are more than your total gross income or gains from your trades or businesses plus the threshold amount. Such excess losses should be determined without regard to any deductions, gross income, or gains attributable to any trade or business or performing services of an employee. Basically, this is amounts that go over these amounts specified that you have had losses in your business or trade and you want to document it with the IRS, or rather you need to document it with the IRS. Now, if you have amounts that are in excess of this, please go to a CPA and have them be helping you document everything for your business. In fact, you probably are going and you're paying somebody to do your payroll anyway, and they're covering this. But regardless, if you're building up a business and eventually you're going to be carrying losses forward that are in excess of this amounts, which if you build it up to any good size, that's very possible to do. Please go to see a CPA to make sure that you're getting this done correctly. Now, moving on from 8P, we're going to be going to 8Q, taxable distributions from an ABLE account. Basically, if you are pulling money from an ABLE account, it might be taxable if the amount that was pulled out is more than the designated beneficiary's qualified disability expenses. 8R. These are scholarships and fellowship grants that are not reported on your Form W-2. Basically, you have to report them and you're going to pay taxes on them, with the exception if you were a degree candidate. Include on line 8R only the amounts used for expenses other than tuition and course-related expenses. So basically you are not going to be putting those things in there. So it'd be like room, board, food, things like that. 8S, this is going to be indicated on box 1 of the W-2 where the Medicaid payments were actually indicated, so that way you know how much was paid out. And basically for that, it's going to be the non-taxable amount. Moving on to 8T, that's going to be pension or annuity from a non-qualified deferred compensation plan. Basically employing this directly from the instructions. This may be shown on box 11 of Form W-2. If you receive such an amount, but it wasn't indicated on the W-2, please contact your employer or your payer for the amount you received, so that way it gets documented correctly on your W-2, and that amount is going to go here in line 8T. 8U, these are wages earned while incarcerated. So if you were in prison or in jail and you were doing some sort of work program with that place and you got paid on your W-2, that money is going to be going right here. Z, basically this is a catch-all category, so if there is something that you're doing, the IRS has not already listed and provided a box for you to put that income in, put it in here, and congratulations, you're still going to be paying income taxes on it. And then basically we get to line 9, and this is where you're going to add up everything that was in line 8. A through Z, yes, I know they're missing some letters in there, but irregardless, you're going to be going in here, adding it all up, and then putting it in there in line 9. And then line 10, you're going to be adding up everything that you had up to this point. So it's going to be lines 1 through 7, you're going to be adding 9 to that, and this is going to be your total additional income. You're going to enter this information here on line 10, as well as on your applicable 1040, whether it's the regular one, the SR, or the NR, you're going to put that in line 8. Now at this point, we have part 1 of Schedule 1 done. If you're interested in how to fill out the rest of it in part 2, you can find that on our Tax 101 playlist right here. I want to thank you for joining me today, and from your first penny to your first million, we're here to help.